Happy Friday, LRA members. It's your president, Teresa Knapp Gordon, and I'm coming to you today to talk about LRA and who we are and what we stand for, because I want to make sure that everybody understands what the purpose of the Little Rock Education Association is and why we exist. So that you will understand that loss of recognition doesn't really impact who we are and what we do for for our members and for our students. So, the Little Rock Education Association is a union in that we have formed together a group of educators to have a collective voice regarding our job and our professionalism, and our teaching conditions, our learning conditions, and our working conditions. We are the local affiliate of the National Education Association, which is the largest union in the United States, over 3 million members strong, and we are the local affiliate of the Arkansas Education Association, which is the state affiliate of the NEA. And the state has about between 8 and 10,000 members, I think. So we represent educators who work in Little Rock School District. The state represents all of the educators in Arkansas, and the NEA represents all of the educators in the United States. So, together, we make a powerful organization with a strong voice, and we advocate everywhere publicly for our students and what we know to be best practices. So, the LREA came into being in 1950. That's when the charter was established. And the LREA was called the Little Rock Classroom Teachers Association back then because it was made up of only teachers. And so that's where CTA came from, the Classroom Teachers Association. And in 1966, we asked for recognition from the school board, and we certified the number of members, which the threshold is 50% plus one, and we met that threshold, and we negotiated our very first contract. So for 16 years, the association existed without recognition to negotiate a contract. There are unions all over the state of Arkansas that represent members that don't have recognition for a contract. We were the last ones that had recognition in the state of Arkansas. And just saying that to let you know that the other unions do exist in Arkansas, even though they don't have recognition. Fort Smith was the other one that had recognition, and the state went into Fort Smith and pretty much did the same thing that they just did here, as far as decertifying us and instituting the Personnel Policy Committee. So the difference is that Fort Smith no longer had 50% plus one membership, and we obviously still do. And it's growing every day. People are joining LREA every day, and we're proud of that. So, what does that mean for us right now? What are we doing? So the Little Rock Education Association is made up of its members. Um, I'm the president because you elected me to be the president. I am not the LREA. I've been part of the LREA since the day I signed my first contract with the Little Rock School District, but I am not the LREA. Our members are the LREA. And your level of engagement and your level of action determine how strong the LREA is. Just like with any other union, paying dues is not what makes a union. Membership engagement and support is what makes a union. And so we are only as strong as our membership. And that being said, our members have stepped up to the plate and shown that they are willing to stand up against the resegregation of Little Rock School District and against the privatization of our public schools. And I am so proud to be your leader through this because every day I see new leaders emerging and growing into their leadership. And it's exciting for me because as a leader, I believe that is my job to grow new leaders. And so that's exciting. And it's just amazing to me to watch our community come together in support of us and our children. Because I think across the country we have witnessed kind of a decimation of public education, and people are pushing back all over the country. The whole Red for Ed movement is about pushing back. It's about teachers finally saying, enough. We are the professionals and we know what our students need, and it's time for you to listen to us. We're tired of being told what to teach, when to teach it, how to teach it, and then you blaming us when it fails. It's time for us to take back our profession. And so we're seeing that movement all across the country. We just watched Chicago, 23,000 strong, close their school district down for 11 days to fight for services and funding and personnel that their students need. And you know, a lot of the things that they were fighting for in Chicago, we already have in our laws in Arkansas. But for some reason, we have schools waiving those very requirements that the Chicago teachers were fighting for. So, you know, one of our main purposes, one of my main jobs as president of the Little Rock Education Association is to advocate for you. And that doesn't stop because they withdrew recognition. The only thing that withdrawal of recognition did was took away our seat at the table for negotiations. It didn't stop me from calling Mr. Poor when there's a problem. It didn't stop me from showing up at schools when there's a problem or when members want to have a meeting with me or if I just want to visit and make root beer floats. I still have the opportunity to do that. My voice will always be as strong as it can be for our students and for you as our educators. We also still have staff. You know, our Carla and Gwen both still work for LREA, and they still serve members every single day. If there's a disciplinary issue, if a member gets called in because, you know, the principal thinks that they did something that they shouldn't have done and wants to write them up for it, we still come out to schools and we still represent our members. If it's a situation where legal services are needed, Carla and Gwen will refer for legal services and make sure that an attorney is present. If somebody's recommended for termination, we provide those services at the hearing. We also help our members file grievances. And, you know, with no rules in place with a contract, there are a lot of issues already beginning because we've had a contract in place for 50 years that outlined what we do. and what's allowed and what's not allowed, and all of those things that are critical to the day-to-day operation of a school district. When you have a school district as large as Little Rock, you need those things in place. And um, without the contract in place, we have to fall back on state law and board policy, Little Rock School District board policy, and on the employee handbook. The problem with that is a lot of the things that have been critical to the day-to-day operation of Little Rock School District are not in those documents. And so principals are trying to enforce requirements that were in the old P&A, and the old P&A is no longer being adhered to. So it's unenforceable. If it's not in board policy or state law or the employee handbook, it's not enforceable. And so I'll just give you one example. So in the P&A, the old P&A, which we were still adhering to, and I'm talking about the big one, the 2012 to 15 P&A, it stated that grades had to be posted weekly. And while that's good practice anyway, you want to share grades with parents, of course. That requirement's now gone. So do you just not post grades at all? Do you wait till the end of the 9 weeks and post all the grades at one time? Or do you wait till interim report time and post all the grades? I think that our professionals will do what they need to do to make sure grades are posted, but that's just an example of something that was required and is no longer in any documentation. Another item that is causing some problems is what time are you supposed to report for work? We have principals telling teachers they're supposed to report for work at 8:30, but board policy says that teachers cannot be required to do more than 30 hours of instructional time per week. And if students are there, it is considered instructional time. So, there's also the law about planning time that says planning time has to occur during the instructional day. So the problem is that the contract benefited them as much as it benefited us because it was a collaborative document. And, I don't think that the people who put this whole situation in motion clearly understand that. And so we're working through those things, and we'll continue to advocate and represent you, our members, as we work through those things. But I just wanted to say to you today that LREA is still here. We are still just as we were before. The only difference is that we're not at the table negotiating a contract. Contracts are important. They have a lot of, especially in Little Rock School District. I feel sure that at some point we will get our recognition back and we will get our contract back. But in the meantime, we must stand together, because one of the things that's most critical about a union is solidarity. And that means that you and I stand together as union brothers and sisters. And we stand there together to fight against inequality and injustice towards our students. I think that is the mantra that any public educator takes upon themselves whenever they decide to become an educator, is that you put your students first and you stand up for your students when they are threatened. And this is the biggest threat of my career right now, and I'm sure many of yours too. So we must be prepared to stand up and fight for our students, to fight against the privatization and resegregation of our school district. We have to be willing to stand together to do that, because if we don't do it, who will? So have a great weekend. Enjoy the cooler weather. And I will see you next week.